I was playing in the backyard when I heard a faint voice calling my name. Growing up, my childhood home was always a place of mystery and intrigue for me. It was a large, old Victorian house situated at the end of a long, winding road surrounded by dense woods. My parents had inherited it from my great-grandparents and were always quick to dismiss any strange occurrences as simply old house quirks. But as I grew older, I started to question their explanations and wondered if there was something truly unusual about our home. One of the earliest strange accounts from my childhood home happened when I was around 7 years old. I was playing in the backyard when I heard a faint voice calling my name. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, but the voice grew louder and more urgent. It seemed to be coming from inside the house. I cautiously made my way to the back door and slowly opened it, peering into the dimly lit hallway. That's when I saw her, a figure dressed in a long white dress, her dark hair cascading down her shoulders. She stood at the top of the staircase, beckoning me to come closer. I was frozen in fear, unable to move, as she continued to call my name. Then suddenly, she vanished into thin air. I ran back outside, heart racing, and told my parents about the strange encounter. They laughed it off, saying it must have been a trick of the light, but I couldn't shake off the feeling that there was something off about our house. As the years went by, I experienced more and more strange occurrences in our home. Objects would go missing, only to reappear in different places. Doors would open and close on their own. I would often hear whispers and footsteps when no one else was around. My parents shrugged off my accounts, saying it was all in my head. But I knew there was something going on in our home. One particularly eerie incident happened when I was 13. My best friend, Jenna, was staying over for the weekend. We were having a sleepover in the living room when we heard a loud banging on the front door. We looked at each other in confusion as my parents were out of town for the weekend. I cautiously opened the door, but no one was there. We shrugged it off and went back to our movie marathon. But throughout the night, we heard strange noises and felt as if we were being watched. We chalked it up to our overactive imaginations, but deep down, we knew something was off. That same year, my parents decided to renovate the attic and turn it into a guest room. I was excited about the idea of having my own space, but as the construction began, strange things started to happen. The workers would often complain about tools going missing or being moved to different locations. They even reported seeing a ghostly figure in the attic, which they believed to be the spirit of my great-grandmother. My parents were skeptical, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The final straw came when I was 15. I was home alone studying for an exam when I heard a loud crash coming from the basement. I went to investigate, thinking it was just our cat knocking over something. But as I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw a figure darting across the room. It was a woman dressed in a white gown, just like the one I saw when I was 7. She disappeared into the shadows, and I stood frozen in fear. I immediately called my parents, who rushed home and searched the entire house, finding no signs of an intruder. That's when they finally started to believe me. We decided to seek help from a medium who claimed to have the ability to communicate with spirits. She told us that our house was built on an ancient burial ground and that the spirits of those buried there were still lingering. She also mentioned that there was a dark presence in the house, feeding off the negative energy and causing the strange occurrences. My parents were skeptical, but I couldn't ignore the constant feeling of being watched and the unexplained events. We decided to have a cleansing ritual performed, and for a while, things seemed to calm down. But then, a new family moved into the house next door, and strange things started happening to them as well. It was as if the dark presence had shifted to their home. That's when we realized that the problem was much bigger than just our house. It seemed to be connected to the land itself. We did some research and found out that the previous owners of our home had also experienced strange phenomena. One family even claimed to have seen a ghostly apparition in their room every night. But they had kept it quiet, not wanting to scare off potential buyers. It became clear to us that our home was not just an old house with quirks, but it was a place haunted by something sinister. As I grew older and moved out of my childhood home, I often wondered about the spirits and the dark entity that dwelled there. I couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt for leaving it all behind for someone else to deal with. But then again, I was just a child, and my parents believed they were doing the right thing by dismissing my claims. Years later, when my parents decided to sell the house, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness. I wondered if the spirits had finally been able to find peace once the house was empty. I even went back to visit one last time, and as I walked through the now empty rooms, I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched. I never found out what exactly was haunting our childhood home, but I know that it was something much more than just old house quirks. It was a place where the past and present intertwined, where the living and the dead coexisted, and where the truth was stranger than fiction. Even now, as an adult, I find myself looking over my shoulder, wondering if the spirits of our home followed me to my new house, reminding me that some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved.